want to thank you for joining us in the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, we're emanating from our studios that First Star Logistics has built for us, and they are phenomenal. That's the best way to describe it. They're as good as it gets. As is our guest today, Solomon Wilcots, as good as it gets. This guy had a very distinguished career in the National Football League, played a bunch of great seasons for the Cincinnati Bengals, played phenomenally well for them, was a leader of men on the football field, in the locker room, in the community. He just was a hard-hitting safety. Dick LeBeau loved Solomon Wilcots because Solomon Wilcots was an intelligent football player that knew everything there was to know about the entire defense, not just his position, but he knew his position so well because he knew the entire defense, what the concept was, and how his assignment responsibility fit into that and made that concept work. And Dick LeBeau, I had conversations with him many times about the mind, the football IQ of Solomon Wilcots, and how special it was, and how Dick LeBeau trusted Solomon Wilcots to handle things, handle business, as he called it, on the football field in terms of getting guys in the huddle, getting guys out of the huddle with with an understanding of what the hell they're supposed to do and do it at a very, very high level. So we are very pleased to be joined by this gentleman today, Solomon Wilcots, who National Football League Solly, brilliant seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals, also played with the Minnesota Vikings, the Pittsburgh Steelers. But of course, we remember you as a Cincinnati Bengal and right, all the great years that you gave the Cincinnati Bengals. Tell us about your time in Cincinnati, Solly. What's your biggest remembrance? What do you remember most about the time that you spent in Cincinnati being a Cincinnati Bengal?
I remember just walking into a locker room of guys that I had a tremendous amount of respect for. And, when I was drafted by the Bengals, growing up in California, I kind of grew up out west and went to school in Boulder, Colorado. I didn't know much about the area. I didn't know much about the Midwest. Most of my trips when we traveled for our family reunions was down south back to Texas and then Louisiana, which is where, my parents are from. But then when I came back here, I was drafted by the Bengals and came here and walked into a locker room. I knew who Anthony Munoz was. I knew who Max Montoya was. Those are guys that I, rooted for as a kid and watched them play at USC and UCLA. So, but I knew who, Ross Browner was, and Boomer Esiason and Kenny Anderson. Those guys were the guys who were in the locker room and who were on the team, guys like Reggie Williams. And I had great respect for many of those players. And we knew who James Brooks was, right? Who had played in San Diego for the Chargers. Right. Next thing you know, he's playing for the Bengals. And I remember watching him as a rookie play, and how exceptional and how tough-minded he was. So, I knew I was joining a really good football team, or at least a team that had good players.
Yep.
And in those days, there was no practice squad. There was no interim place to be parked while you figured it out. You either had to come in and make the team, or you were getting a bus ticket home, right? And so, I was very intent on not being in that latter group. So, I knew I had my work cut out as an 8th round selection. Wasn't a favorite to do anything, but I knew I had versatility in my game. I knew there were some things that I could bring to the table. I had gotten to know a guy by the name who had, Ronnie Lott, who I had admired and got to know him when I was working at some camps over the summer. Sid Gilman used to have these camps, and I would work as a counselor in his camp. I was fortunate enough to be around the great Sid Gilman and all these coaches he would bring in. And I remember he had Ronnie Lott and Marcus Allen. They had come through, and we admired those guys. If you grew up in Southern California, you knew who they were.
Sure.
And I remember Ronnie Lott probably was the guy that really prepared me most for what an NFL training camp was going to be like, and the mindset you needed as a rookie to have respect for veterans, but not so much respect that you weren't willing to challenge and compete against them. And he helped frame it for me perfectly. Don't take nothing off of anybody. Know who you are, and be confident in your ability. After that, I didn't ask for no permission to do anything.
Right.
So that's what I just remember that. And I remember, Sam Weiss and Dick LeBeau, after, maybe a first few practices, they told me, look, don't worry about where you were drafted. They said you're going to have every chance to make this team.
Yeah.
And, and then I remember after the first week of practice, I came up with I woke up one morning, I couldn't straighten my leg out. My hamstring literally, I don't know what happened. I woke up, I could not, it locked up on me. That's right. I couldn't, my leg was stuck in this, it was bent. I could not straighten my leg. I never had it happen in my life. I never had hamstring problems. That just goes to show you, getting injured is the worst thing that ever happened to a player, because it's the one thing you can't control.
Right.
But I had already gone through enough of training camp, and Sam said, okay, you're not going to have to play in this scrimmage, because how we had that annual scrimmage.
Yep.
He said, but I'm going to need you ready for that first preseason game, okay?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, coach, and I just remember breathing a sigh of relief. And all the veterans were hazing me, can't make the club in the tub and all. I heard it all, Dave. So
I hear you.
I wasn't really happy and wasn't too confident during that little week, right, where I wasn't able to practice. When you're not able to practice, you lose control of your own future.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't control your own destiny anymore, right?
That's right.
You're not out there smacking people. And the biggest thing I remember as a rookie was coming into training camp, and knowing that there were going to be older players that you'd be practicing against and working against and trying to make the team with and all that. Because like in high school, you might be 14 and the oldest guy on the team's 18, or maybe 15 as a sophomore, 15, the oldest guy's 18. Same in college. There's maybe a 3-year difference unless a guy's redshirted, and then maybe a 4-year difference. But in the NFL, I mean, you're a rookie, and you're 22 years old, and you get guys in the locker room. You're looking across you, 32, 33 years old. It's like a decade older. It's like that's a grown man over there. It's unbelievable. So that was an interesting adjustment. To realize, man, some of these guys have been around for a long time and continue to do it at that high a level. Man, these guys are special. You got to make sure you learn something from these guys, because they figured it out. And you got to try to find out what that secret sauce is, man, because I remember thinking I would just love to be in their shoes, man. It'd be a 32-year-old guy still playing the sport that I loved when I was a kid, and a grown man playing a kid's game. And they were still, guys in their 30s playing at a very high level, man, really good.
That for us, my rookie year for Eric Thomas and I, because we came in together in '87, that was Lewis Breeden, who was just a wonderful person, first-class individual, and was willing to share the knowledge with us. He made us a better team because of who he was and what the player he was, had this great reputation. He was a playmaker, and just a phenomenal leader and a real solid guy. The unique thing about my rookie season is that, you spend all that effort, energy, and time making the team. You start off with all these guys. Next thing you know, it's like you look around the room and it ain't a lot. So you're going to be needed. You're going to be relied upon. And then secondly, we went on a strike 2 weeks into the season. So I was out of a job. I was out of a job 2 weeks later. And I got to tell you, nothing left an imprint on me during my whole NFL career like that did, because for 5 weeks I was out of a job and I'd never trusted any of it ever again. I said, I'm going to get a real job. I'm going to work every year in the off season. I'm not going to just trust being an NFL player. I really understood that NFL was an acronym, which meant not for long. I felt it was such a precarious. I found myself like so disenchanted. I was like, You spent your whole life as a kid wanting to do this job. How dumb are you to want to do a job like this that doesn't care anything about you? I remember watching Ross Browner walk out of the locker room and out of our meeting room, and in comes Jason Buck, a guy who hadn't played a down. He was our first round pick that year. And I have all the respect for Jason Buck. This had nothing to do with him, but I watch him walk into the room and I watch Ross Browner walk out of the room. You're telling me this guy's better than Ross Browner? No way. I was like, and I'm thinking, and so I was like, it made no sense to me. We don't keep the best guys always. We don't do the best things it was just so much that did not make sense to me. And there was so much hedging. Like they'll play this guy over that guy.
Yeah.
Right. I just said, no. All the fundamentals I was raised with went out the window. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not trusting it. I'm going to go get me a real job and I'll play football as long as I can, within reason. But I'm going to go get another job so that I'm ready to move on when it's time to move on. That was kind of my thing. So that rookie season made an impression on me. The year number 2 sort of was redemption, because from wire to wire, we knew we were a good team from the day we walked into training camp. And then I ended up winning a starting job in the secondary. Eric Thomas ended up winning a starting job in the secondary. And we go to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Here we go. And so that sort of renewed my confidence, right, in what we were working for.
It really is, and like you talk about a fraternity, man, when you're on teams like Super Bowl teams, you go to a Super Bowl, the bonds that are formed there are lifelong.
Right.
I mean,
that's right.
They're it's like a fraternity, man. They're your brothers. They're your brothers forever. I mean, you went to battle with these guys, man. You went shoulder to shoulder into the into the throes of a war, and came out on the other side of it. So when you do that, when you put all that on the line with the guy over and over again, not just a game, but a bunch of games for a bunch of years, you know every single thing there is to know about that individual.
Yeah.
And man, you become super, super tight. And that, I think that's one thing about the game of football that, that I really like, I really respect is the interaction with teammates, the growth that you have with teammates. You're like a young adult that grows and develops and matures into an adult with guys on the football team. That's that time frame of your life, and you're doing it playing football with a bunch of guys from all different walks of life. I mean, it's a heck of a melting pot, man.
It's amazing. I grew up in the inner city of Los Angeles, California. In Compton, California. Wow. I didn't grow up on a farm. Yeah. I didn't, I respect it. I respected those guys because I went to the University of Colorado, and the team that we played that was our number one sort of rival was the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And,
sure.
Tom Osborne, Nebraska had great teams, great players.
They did.
They had these guys that were from, I'm telling you, man, they were from the farm hinterlands of 8-man football. There weren't even enough guys to fill a whole team.
Right.
And there was a guy by the name of Jim Scow and Dave Remington and all those guys. And these guys were, oh man, they were great football players, And I had played against those teams that had Mike Rozier, Irving Fryer, Turner Guild, Tom Rathman. They had all those dudes. And then I get to the NFL, I walk in the locker room, there's Jim Scow. It's like there's Dave Remington. Like I'm on the same team with these guys, And I remember going over to Jim Scow, who wasn't that big of a guy for an interior tackle.
Amazing.
I saw him. I was like, "You're Jim Scow?" I said, "Dude, we couldn't block you to save our lives." I said, "You made every damn tackle when we played you guys." And he's just laughing, But he and I became really good friends. I mean, and then, number 69, man, that's my guy, Tim Crumry.
Yep.
This guy grew up in farm country in Wisconsin, Eau
Exactly.
Claire, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And I just remember watching Timmy practice. I'm a rookie. I remember after our first couple of practices at night when they're watching the tape, and I just see this number 6. We didn't have names on the back of our practice jerseys.
Sure.
Nobody we did.
Right.
I'm like, and I remember leaning over to Eric Thomas. I said, who's number 69? I was like, look at how this guy practiced. I said, dude, that's how we got to practice. I said, look at this guy, man. Look, I just remember just being so inspired by the way he practiced and the way he played. But when I watched him practice, it just gave me permission to do the same thing, Yeah. Because sometimes, as a rookie, you don't want to, how it is. But I was like, all right, that's how it's got to be done. That tempo, that intensity, that energy, that's what it's really about. And for me, Tim Crumry was so inspirational. He still is to this day, right? He represented for me everything that a football player is supposed to be about. You know how it is. If they didn't pay us, and back then they didn't pay us much, right? So they didn't pay us. Timmy would have been the one lone guy still out there paying them to play, right? He's been out there saying, "That's okay," but he was that inspiring, and he was the guy that held our team and our defense together. We weren't the best defense in the league when we made our Super Bowl run, but we were really good at making plays at the right time. We were good at critical moments.
Yep.
Critical third down, fourth quarter, we were great.
Yep.
Down inside the red zone and on the goal line, we were great. We weren't good. We were great.
Right.
That's why the Niners, they were going up and down the field. They couldn't score. They were wondering in that Super Bowl, what was it, 6-6 at halftime or something like that? They were like, what? We can't score on these guys. And that's who we were. And as you well know, Tim was lost in that game. But his spirit was still with us. But it's kind of what we were as a team. Who he was kind of embodied a lot about who we were and what we were about and how we sort of address things. And it's a relationship that I still deem to be very important to me today. He and we talk often on the phone. We go to he'll want me to come over to Bengals practice. I tell him, Timmy, I'm working, man. I got right. He's like, let's go over and watch a practice. Tim, if he asks me to watch practice, we're gonna go watch a practice and we'll catch lunch. We'll do lunch every now and then and just talk ball. He's just a special person that needs to be remembered more. And he's in the Cincinnati Bengals Ring of Honor, rightfully so. Yes. I want to congratulate you, going into the Bengals Ring of Honor, and long overdue and very well deserved. You have represented the team. You've represented the town, the city of Cincinnati in such a wonderful, classy way. And even during the most difficult times, what I call the lost year of the 90s, you still, covered this team with a grace and with an expectation, with this first class dignity that was so phenomenal. And you still continue to do that today, Dave. And I just want you to know, we all appreciate it. I know for Cincinnati Bengals fans everywhere, man, you are synonymous. Like, you are the voice. You're like their Vin Scully, you're the voice that they grew up on, and
right.
And it's I think, that's not to be understated. That's not, and the energy that you bring when you call those games, the positivity that you bring is something that I know that in every tavern, every coffee house, every bar, and every restaurant, Cincinnati Bengal fans still talk about that every single day. So they admire what you do, and it's been great for all of us. So congratulations.
Sully, I can't thank you enough, man. Coming from you, who was such an ambassador to the game of football yourself. I mean, you played it at such a high level. You coached it. You've broadcasted it. You've done everything in the game of football at an extremely high level yourself. And you're a Ring of Honor inductee in the very, very near future yourself, my man. There's no question about it. Everything that you said about me, all those kind words you said about me, you could say about yourself. I know you never would, but you could, and I will. You are phenomenal, man. You're a phenomenal human being, phenomenal football player. I can't thank you enough. Like I said, those kind of compliments coming from a person who understands the game and every nuance of the game, everything there is to know about the game like you do. You're a football savant, and to be as kind and complimentary as you were to me right there, it means a lot, man. It really does. Coming from you, it means everything, honestly. And
you giving the game a lot. I know if I were to talk to your wife, she would say absolutely. You and I know what it means to be a part of this league, to cover this league, to be whether you're playing, whether you're coaching, whether you're announcing. It takes a lot of hours out of our day. You know that. But I always say we live in the toy department of life. We get to cover a sport and cover a game that we fell in love with many, many years ago when we were kids, right? And we still get to kind of do that and work in that space. It can be frustrating at times, it could be demanding, obviously, but it's a labor of love, and we appreciate the opportunity. More importantly, we appreciate and respect the responsibility that comes with it, right?
Right.
And I always tell my friends, because they know how big of a Bengals fan I really am.
Sure.
And they say, sometimes, man, you're kind of hard on the team. I was like, no. I said, I'm not unfair. And I said, I expect more of us. I expect more. And I'm never, ever going to lower that bar for any of us. I'm just not, And, when we get a championship trophy in that trophy case, okay, then you'll see me exhale. Until then, I'm going in hard, Dave.
I hear you.
I'm going in hard. That's why I appreciate you, because you're a nice guy and you're great, and I love your approach to it. I come from the other side, man. I'm coming in hot, Until we get that Lombardi trophy in there, they could expect everything from me, because I'm coming. There's no doubt. I'm going to push hard. I'm driving hard. I look good. I'm not going to let good become the enemy of great, but I'm chasing greatness. I'm chasing the ultimate, and that's getting a Vince Lombardi trophy in the Cincinnati Bengals trophy case.
And Solly, man, let's get to this year's edition. It's a great segue. A Super Bowl trophy in the trophy case, a Lombardi trophy, and this team can do it. I mean, we were part of great football teams with the Cincinnati Bengals. We were part of teams that went to Super Bowls, came up a little bit short, but hey, we're the best team in respective conference during the regular season, won the division, won the conference, go to the Super Bowl. Pretty good. It's pretty good run. Pretty good football teams. The Bengals have done that 3 times. They got to get the big one, though, man. They got to get the big trophy, the Lombardi trophy, bring it back to Cincinnati. This football team, I think, has what it takes to get it done. What do you think about this year's edition, the 2025 edition of the Cincinnati Bengals?
Oh, look, I think they're formidable, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, remember I told you, Paul Brown, like, teams are afraid of you.
Yeah.
They just don't know what team they're going to face. You could say the same thing about this team.
Yeah.
There wasn't anybody who wanted to play the Cincinnati Bengals in the playoffs at the end of the 2024 season.
Right on.
I'm just flat telling you. Boy, they were happy when the Broncos slid in that back door because Kansas City decided not to. I think Kansas City didn't even want to see the Bengals coming. They didn't.
Right.
And they were like, we're going to let the Broncos in. Just we do not. Think about it. They would have beat the Denver Broncos. They could end up playing the Cincinnati Bengals. They did have a bye week, so it would have taken more steps. But the Bengals would have been one of the lowest seeded teams in the AFC. So that means if the Bengals would have survived the wild card round, they would have been playing Kansas City.
Yeah.
As the number 1 seed. So
Exactly.
I think even Kansas City is like, no, don't let Joe Burrow. We'll let Bo Nix and the Broncos in before we let the Bengals in. That's
Yeah.
a fact. That's what you saw. They didn't play any starters. I think they lose that game 38-0.
Yeah.
They didn't care. They didn't care.
Ugly.
It
Ugly.
was ugly. But that's what I see with this team has that kind of respect around the league. And if Trey Hendrickson is in camp and is able to go, and I mean, think about it. This guy has had more sacks, more total pressures than any other edge rusher in the league over the last 2 years. I think he's tied for second most pressures over the last 2 years. Certainly more sacks than anybody over the last 2.
Yep.
So your sack leader, your leading passer, your leading receiver, all on one team. How can you not, providing all the players on the field and under contract and are happy with going to work, how can you not have great respect for this team and not anticipate them having a successful season? And I think they've got great leadership from their quarterback, Joe Burrow.
Yep.
I think the relationships, I think Zach Taylor has done a wonderful job of building a good culture for leadership and hard work, and at least having the right mindset of how to compete when they go out and play games. I think the Bengals take people by surprise sometimes with this. When the games start, man, they play fast. Yeah. They're hitting you quick. And you watch someone like a Chase Brown, for instance, who gives them, I think, more firepower on offense than maybe what we've had in the past. You saw that last year. Mm-hmm. He got rolling now. Mm-hmm. He got rolling, man. He's a handful when you think about what you have to deal with on the perimeter,
right?
And then to deal with him coming out of the backfield. So I'm excited for this team. I do want us to get handled. I just think the front office job is to make sure that the coaches have their players, that they have everything they need to win.
Yeah.
Like the front, like everybody has a role to play. We know the players' role. You got to perform on Sunday, right?
Right.
And we know the coach's role. You got to give them a plan to execute on Sunday, and you got to prepare them to be able to be ready for everything that's going to occur in a game. That's everybody knows that role. What's the role of the front office?
Mm-hmm.
Give the coaches everything they need.
Mm-hmm.
Give the players everything they need. And, you know, I watch this league. I've been around this league a long time. I watch teams who already are good double down on good while making a Super Bowl run.
Right.
I'm watching the Ravens go out and get a Jair Alexander when he was for the taking for us. You know, I watch a Christian Wilkins who played with T. Higgins at Clemson, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Raiders, that's the Raiders' problem. He ain't our problem. I think he represents a solution, but I think teams that's what the Eagles do. When they saw that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was disgruntled in New Orleans, they went out and signed him because the dude can play.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to find a way. You know, Al Davis was good about this. Players that you know can play. I've already answered that question. Can they play or not?
Yeah.
Forget about why the other team didn't make it work. That's their problem. Right. But that's when players become available for you to get better. And I don't know that we've ever made, and when was the last time we made a sexy move like that? And I know I use that term sexy, and I know that's not, Mike Brown wouldn't use that word. He wouldn't use that word. You know, Mike is kind of he's going to do it a certain way. And I have great respect for him, by the way. But I just do think there are times within the organizational cycle or when the window is open to win a championship that you've got to be more aggressive, that you've got to be different than everyone else. You can't move at the same pace as everyone else if you plan to leapfrog them and pass them up, right?
Right.
If you're going to pass people up in terms of your talent, in terms of how far you plan to go, you got to do things that are uniquely special. 2021, we end up losing the Super Bowl to the Rams. You know what the Rams did that offseason prior to that year? They already had a quarterback in Jared Goff, who's a pretty good quarterback, by the way.
Absolutely.
First overall pick in the draft.
Right.
They went and got Matthew Stafford. That same offseason, they went out and acquired Von Miller.
Yeah.
That same offseason, they went out and got Jalen Ramsey during the middle of the season. He was a mid-season acquisition, and so was Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, right.
So my point is they never stopped. They never stopped adding. They never had enough talent. Tom Brady, when he went to Tampa, they get the great Tom Brady. They didn't stop. They were like, let's get Gronk too.
Yeah,
let's get Antonio Brown also.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go get. I remember they were adding Ndamukong Suh. Let's go. Oh yeah, we want Ndamukong Suh. And then that year they drafted Antoine Winfield Jr. and Tristan Wirfs in the same draft in 2020. So you never have enough in our game. When you think you got a good team, go get more.
Yeah,
the door is open to add more. That our league is set up that way. And when talent becomes available, you ought to be thinking about how can I acquire that talent? Now I get it. It's got to be a good fit. I get it. But you can't let everybody else get better and you stay right here. And so you see what the Steelers did this offseason, man. They went and got everybody. That's all I'm saying is that, I feel good about us. But let's see how we continue to add to what we have.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that all the problems have been solved. Giving coaches the groceries and then saying, hey, we got enough, and then understanding the landscape around you, you need to do more because everyone else is doing more.
You're right, Solly. And two areas where the Bengals are trying to do a little bit more to improve the football team are in the draft and free agency. They're not trading. They haven't made any trades. They haven't consummated any trades that would make you open your eyes wide. But they have drafted well, I think, in the interior of the offensive line and in the interior of the defensive line in the last couple of drafts. And they've done a pretty good job in free agency this offseason, adding talent at the guard position and defensive tackle position as well. And those, in my mind, are the two spots where they were the most deficient. I think if they could improve themselves in the interior of the offensive line, both running the football with some power and strength in the interior and good protection skills and abilities as well, and they can do defensively, stop the run and get after the quarterback, push the pocket, get in the quarterback's face, make his life difficult, make it so he can't see down the football field. He can't, feel comfortable with his follow through and snap that football off the way that quarterbacks like to do it in the National Football League. If they continue to improve in those areas, I think they could be pretty good because I do think their roster and their talent overall in a lot of other areas is pretty strong. It's up there.
Yeah, and it's about the chemistry, right, to come together. Yep. I think that's what you're talking about on our offensive line. That, to me, I like the names on the back of the jerseys. In other words, these are some talented players. Yep. You have a lot of confidence that they are going to be good. But the ability to play together and be good, I think that's where the question marks are. Yeah, and I think it's the same for the secondary. I like the names on the back of the jerseys. I like the players, the collection of players that they've assembled in the secondary. And now it's about execution, right? It's about the cohesiveness that you need to be able to play well together, because those two groups, offensive line and your defensive secondary, requires a high volume of communication, a lot of communication and accuracy. And you cannot have one person, right? You've got a collection of players. Like in your secondary, you're playing as many as 7 or 8 guys. Offensive line, you're going to rotate through, as you well know, you start 5, you're going to probably rotate to another 2 or 3 guys.
Yep.
And the communication has to be the same. The productivity has to be the same, right? Yep. And you can't afford one level of drop off. And if you do, those 2 areas can cost you a game more than any other area, right? Offensive line, if you don't play well, you can't win.
Yes,
I'm just telling you, in the secondary, you make one mistake.
Yep.
It's a score for the other team.
Yep.
That's what we're talking about. And so that's why chemistry, I think, for those two areas are so important. I love the Cam Taylor Brits. I love Dax Hill. I like DJ Turner, Jordan Battle. These are players that I'm excited to watch this year. Josh Newton, right? But now they have to play well together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you move on from some of the guys we moved on from in the secondary now, you know, Mike Hilton most recently, to be able to ask guys now to fit in and perform better,
right?
That's what we're asking, right? We're trying to improve while making replacements. That's a curveball now. That's a steep one, but it can be done because I think these group of players can be really good. It's just a matter, can they be good playing together on a week-to-week basis?
And like you said, Solly, they've got an unbelievable quarterback. I think the best quarterback in the league. They've got a tandem of wide receivers, a duo of wideouts that are just extraordinary, as good as there is in the NFL. They can do everything. They can run every route known to man. They catch the football. You can run after the catch. You name it, they can do it. They have a tight end, Mike Gesicki, who's uber talented. I mean, this guy's as good a receiver at the tight end position as there is in the National Football League. Andre Iosivas, they're developing a young receiver. Got a skill set, very, very talented, gifted physically, size, speed, all of that. Hands, very, very smart guy, can understand what to do at multiple positions in the offensive side of things. So they've got players. And then defensively, you know, they've got players at every level as well. Defensive line, linebacker, and in the back end, like you described. It's just a matter of putting it all together and everybody playing on the same page and not having a guy break down. You don't want to be the guy that cost your team the game, like you said, on a touchdown bomb or, you know, or man, you got beaten like a drum in a quarterback sack that ended the game with a sack or turnover that ended the football game because of the pressure and the hit on the sack caused a fumble or whatever. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that person that cost your entire unit the football game. You don't want to be the guy making mistakes. That's the thing. Avoid the mental mistakes. You don't want to be the one that blocked the wrong guy and your guy is free and makes a disruptive play. All of those kind of things. And I think they have done a much better job in the personnel area of identifying guys that have football IQ, can understand what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, why they're supposed to do it. And I think they've identified those players and are bringing more and more of them to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, and all that and all those players that you mentioned, that really is the sweet spot of getting all those things to come together and play at the high level. We talked about those teams that we played on that went to Super Bowls and what it was like, what that season was like.
Yeah.
You know, what it was like is everybody really taking ownership for their area and being excited about being held accountable, right? To make sure it got done and not put the onus on anyone else. You know, really great teams all take turn in making those plays to make sure that you reach a high level. And that's what it's about. It's about being really intentional and putting the priorities above all else. It's great to go out and celebrate wins, but man, first you got to put the work in. You got to, before you think about the dinners, the parties, the fun, man, you got to put that work in, or ain't gonna be no fun times at all. So these are the times, this heat wave we've got blowing through, man. It's hard to do. It's hard. This is a hard time of the season to be able to sort of meld everyone into a team. How do you take 53 guys and make them one? That's really where the Cincinnati Bengals are, but I'm confident that they'll get it done, Dave. I really am.
I am too, Solly. Dave Lapham here. While games are over for the season, there's no off season for In the Trenches with Dave Lapham or First Star Logistics. First Star Logistics gave away great prizes during the season, which will continue with exclusive content in the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. So please do me a favor, subscribe to In the Trenches, hit the like button, and visit the First Star Media Group YouTube channel for exclusive content and special giveaways.